You're listening to a special edition of The Daily Hall. Thoughts Beyond the Card. If you are suffering from mental illness or are in any type of relationship with someone who is, this episode is for you. We're glad you're here and we hope you'll take these words to heart. We are not here to expose, but to educate. We don't seek to bash, but to bring to light things your person or persons may experience while managing 4 facets of mental illness. We will discuss during this podcast.
Girlfriend made it all the way to the end with that intro and couldn't say the word podcast. That always tickles me, how there are certain words that they just cannot pronounce without error. Anyway, today is a special episode, and it is titled Loving Someone with ADD, Depression, PTSD, or Anxiety, What Your Spouse Actually Needs to Know. So welcome back. I'm glad you're all here. And if this is your first time, I want you to know that you found this episode for a reason. Today, we're going somewhere real. Somewhere probably ugly to a lot of people. We're talking about marriage. Specifically, what it looks like to love someone who is living with ADD, depression, PTSD, or anxiety. And in some cases, all 4 at once. And what a partner truly needs to understand in order to show up well in that relationship. And to ask the question, do I really want to be in this relationship? Do I need to be in this relationship? Can I handle being in this relationship? Now, as always, a podcast wouldn't be a podcast without my noisy co-host, Max. So, of course, he is doing what he does. Max is maxing, as usual. So, let me get that out the way. Now, I want to be upfront from the very beginning. I'm not speaking from the outside looking in. I'm not just parroting something I read. I'm the person in the situation with these diagnoses. And I actually have all 4. Well, I don't want to say I have all 4. I want to say I deal with all 4. Because having them, you know. But I'm the one who has navigated all of this while carrying grief. And I'm talking like the type of grief that just completely reshaped my world. It just changed everything for me. So I'll start at the beginning of my marriage. I'll spare you the courtship and all of the seedy details with that. So I got married on February 20th, 2015. 18 days later, I lost my brother. 18 days. I became a wife and a grieving sister almost in the same breath. And then, on September 12th, 2020, I lost my father. I share that because context matters. And because grief is one of those things we almost never talk about when we talk about mental health and marriage. Grief does not pause for a new beginning. It doesn't wait until you're settled, until the honeymoon is over, until life calms down. It arrives when it arrives. And a marriage has to find a way to hold that kind of weight together, or it begins to crack under the pressure alone. This episode is for the partners, the spouses, those who love someone like me and genuinely want to understand us better. And for those of us living with these conditions who have spent years feeling unseen, I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to educate, to give language to things that often go unsaid, and to hopefully close some of the distance that these conditions can create inside of a marriage. Whether you're a partner trying to understand or the person being understood, this one is for you. Let's get into it. Understand the conditions and what they actually are. So before we talk about marriage, we have to talk about the brain, because so much of what happens in a relationship with someone who has these conditions gets misread. It gets mistaken for attitude, for laziness, for not caring. I want to address that head on because I've lived on the receiving end of that misreading, and I know exactly the kind of damage it does over time. We're going to go through each condition: ADD, depression, PTSD, and anxiety, and then talk about what it looks like when all four exist in the same person at the same time, because that last part is where so much gets missed. ADD. ADD, sometimes called ADHD, an attentive type, is not about attention in the way most people assume. It's not that your spouse can't pay attention. It's that their brain struggles to regulate attention. They can hyper-focus on something, engaging for hours, and at the same time, completely lose track of something that does not stimulate them, even when it matters deeply. What rarely gets talked about is executive dysfunction. Executive function is the part of the brain that handles planning, starting tasks, organizing, switching between tasks, and managing time. In people with ADD, that system does not fire the way it does in a neurotypical brain. So when your spouse moves from room to room while trying to clean, they're not being careless or unfocused on purpose. Their brain is genuinely struggling to complete a task sequence. When they seem to forget something, it is not willful, it's neurological. And there's also something called time blindness. Your spouse cannot feel time passing the way others do. An hour can feel like 10 minutes. A deadline 2 weeks away feels abstract until it is tomorrow. This is not an excuse. It is a documented feature of how ADD brains experience time. And understanding it changes everything about how you respond when plans fall apart. The most important thing I can say to any partner listening right now, telling your spouse to just stop, just focus, or just finish what you started. That's like telling someone with a broken leg to walk it off. The instruction does not match the condition. What actually helps is patience, structure, and choosing to work with your partner rather than against them. Again, I say, if you are listening to this podcast and you have a partner who is dealing with any of these four conditions, you really need to think it through. Do you really want to be with this person? Is this really what you want? You may not have signed up for this. This may not be your plan. Everyone deserves to be happy. Figure out what works for you. Some people are willing to stick and stay, but don't stick and stay and say you want to work through it and make your partner miserable. Roll out. Let that person get therapy. You yourself could go get therapy and learn how to deal with them, but you have to think through these, okay? I'm just going to go through all of them, and as I present each one, I want you to be asking yourself that question. As a partner, as a boyfriend, as a girlfriend, as a spouse, as a significant other, whatever title you use in your situationship. We have so many titles these days for things, but you need to be asking yourself that question, because there's no point in staying with someone if you really can't handle their condition. Moving on. Depression. Depression is one of the most misunderstood conditions in any relationship. People assume it means sadness. We once had a podcast co-host, and he would say things, they just need to go go do something fun. They should just go shake it off, And we explained to him, this was around the time when Robin Williams took his own life. And I actually had several men send me DMs and explain feelings that they were having. And it hurts now to even think about that, because these are grown men. These are intelligent, educated men. And after listening to our podcast, they DM'd me and they explained things that they had experienced. And I had to tell them, you're dealing with depression. You're dealing with depression, buddy. That's exactly what it is. They didn't know. They felt bad. They felt ashamed. They didn't want to tell anyone. And the only reason why they said anything to me is because we went so deep with that episode. It ended up being a 2-hour episode. And I was grateful that they, trusted me with their information and decided to reach out and ask the question. And I hope that it served them. And they're all still here. Thank God. And so hopefully it has worked out or is working out for them. So depression does not mean sadness. Clinical depression affects your spouse's energy, motivation, memory, concentration, and even the ability to feel pleasure. It can make getting out of bed feel like climbing a mountain. From the outside, though, it could just look like disinterest or withdrawal. From the inside, your spouse is often fighting one of the hardest battles of their life, quietly and invisibly, while still trying to be present for you. In a marriage, depression creates a gap between what your spouse wants to give and what they're currently capable of giving. That gap is not rejection, it is illness. When a partner responds to that gap with frustration or blame, it does not close it. It widens it. Shame is one of the fastest ways to deepen a depressive episode. If you want to help your spouse, making them feel worse about something they cannot fully control is the last thing you want to do. What your spouse with depression needs from you is consistency and safety. The assurance that their worst days will not cost them the relationship. That alone can be the difference between someone who is barely holding on and someone who starts to find solid ground. And you also can't recall the times when you were there for someone. I've been here for you. I've did this for you. I've done that for you. But now you're bashing me and you're counting it against me. You're supposed to be here for your spouse. Don't do that to your person. Don't keep score. Don't keep score on your person. That is not helping the relationship. It is actually creating animosity. And every time you mention that, they regret ever accepting your help. They regret every time you've been kind, because it wasn't kindness. It was another tick mark for your score sheet. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. PTSD is what happens when the nervous system gets stuck, when a person experiences trauma, loss, abuse, neglect, accidents, witnessing something devastating. The brain's threat detection system can become permanently dysregulated. It stays on high alert, even when the danger is long gone. For your spouse with PTSD, certain sounds, tones of voice, situations, or even times of year can act as triggers. A trigger is not an overreaction. It's an involuntary neurological response. The body genuinely believes it is back in the dangerous moment and reacts accordingly with panic, shutdown, rage, or withdrawal. Your spouse is not choosing this. Their nervous system is. In a marriage, this can feel deeply confusing. Your spouse might be perfectly fine one moment and completely dysregulated the next, with no reason that is visible to you. PTSD can make intimacy difficult. It can make certain conversations feel catastrophic to your partner. It keeps a person hypervigilant, always scanning for threats, even in environments that should feel safe. especially in environments that should feel safe. What your spouse with PTSD needs most is predictability and gentleness. A home environment where they do not feel attacked, being yelled at, belittled, or constantly criticized is not just unkind for someone with PTSD, it's re-traumatizing. That is not a small thing, and it shouldn't be treated as one. So for me, I didn't even know that I had PTSD. And I was treating with, for me, one of the world's most prominent mental health therapists, Irma Phillips Carmichael. And I'm the type of person, let me just put this out there. I'm the type of person, I took therapy, honestly, I misused therapy for a good part of my life. Therapy for me, when I was feeling sick, and I was probably dealing with POTS but didn't know it, and I wanted to take a break from work. You know, you do FMLA or leave of absence or what have you. And it was depression. I just didn't feel well, And what I would do was I would go to therapy long enough to get my paperwork signed so I could be off work. Until I met Irma Phillips Carmichael. When you come into her house, first of all, her home, just the energy in her home, you come in and there's usually a eucalyptus spearmint candle burning. So automatically the scent just draws you in. Her furniture was the antique type of clawfoot furniture. And I would go and I would have a seat and I would wait while she finished with her current client. And then I remember telling her something that I had never told anyone before. And she just smiled. And she told me, she said, "Sweetheart, there's nothing I haven't heard. There's nothing you could say to me that would shock me." And just her smile, her spirit, just everything about her, she is a safe space. So anyone who sees her is just blessed. You're just blessed to be in her presence, And so that was the first time that I ever really took therapy seriously. And I worked with her for years until a billing error and then my withdrawal made it so, I wasn't able to see her anymore. But she completely changed my view on therapy because when it came to really dealing with issues, I was like, therapy doesn't do anything. But I hadn't really taken therapy seriously. I hadn't done any of the homework that therapists had given me. And a lot of times I think that you have to be with a therapist who can understand your life and your lifestyle. And, this is a woman of color, and she's just amazing. So I just want to throw that in there. Like, that's when I really started respecting therapy and seeing what therapy can do for you as a person. And even if I can't see her anymore, I know that I have to get back into therapy. It is of the utmost importance because it does make a difference. So if you're a person like me who has only used it to your advantage and you haven't taken it seriously, I urge you to try again. And don't stop trying because it really can work. It's like, what did they say in those different programs? The program can work, but you have to work the program. That's the same way with therapy. If you give to therapy what you put into it, you can get out of it. And I have no doubt in my mind, she helped me get through my brother's death. And I'm still dealing with that, you know what I'm saying? But I was spinning out and she really kept me from crashing. And so the tools that she gave me when my father passed away, I know that I was strengthened because of her. I was strengthened because of Irma Phillips Carmichael, period. It wasn't that a lot of people were around me. I wasn't getting, a lot of, let's just say I was prepared to deal with things. And therapy with her is what allowed me to do the things that I had to do. And because of previous conversations that we had had about my relationship with my father, I did so even though a lot of people wouldn't have. I still took charge and did what needed to be done. And that was because of therapy. My mind was different because I went to therapy. So, another thing I want you to pull from this episode is it is okay to go to therapy. Do not be ashamed, because a lot of people are. Don't be. All right? Let's continue on to anxiety. Anxiety, clinical anxiety, is the nervous system. And it's when it gets stuck in threat mode. You know, I used to talk about fight or flight. It's not worrying too much. It's a physiological state. Elevated heart rate. That's me. That's my jam. If I'm in a panic, if I'm experiencing anxiety, best believe I'm going into SVT. I'm going into sinus tachycardia, supraventricular tachycardia. It's going down. Some people get muscle tension. Your brain just constantly generates worst case scenarios. It doesn't matter. Logic can be telling you that everything is fine. You're okay. There is no threat. It's like what they say is the bear in the room when there's no bear in the room. Now, in a marriage, anxiety can show up as overthinking, difficulty making decisions, trouble sleeping. I don't sleep. Avoidance of certain situations, or physical symptoms like headaches and nausea. It can present as irritability because a nervous system that's been flooded with stress hormones for too long will eventually snap. And that snap often lands on the person closest to them. Now, I'm not snapping on people. I'm not flipping out. I'm not fussing. I'm not being mean. I remember going to the Integrative Medicine Center at The Ohio State University, and my cortisol was so high that I started to get heat in my face. And they checked my FSH, which, if you don't know, is your follicle shearing hormones. That will tell whether you're in menopause or not. They said I definitely wasn't in menopause, but my face kept getting hot. Well, it turns out that my cortisol was so high that it was like off the charts. They had never seen it that high. They could not explain. And that's how stressed I was, that my cortisol went off the chart. And I was experiencing intense anxiety. I felt like I was going to come out of my own skin. It was so insane. Now, if your spouse is experiencing anxiety, the most damaging thing you can say to your anxious spouse is that, oh, you're being irrational. Do you think they don't know? Do you think they don't know that what they're feeling isn't normal? It's not, what other people feel. They know that something is off. But knowing doesn't stop the feeling. Just because you call it out and say something about it, it doesn't make it go away. What helps is a calm and steady presence. Not dismissal. Not impatience. Not sighing and walking out of the room. Now, what all four together actually looks like. Now, this is where I need partners to really lean in, because this is the piece that most people miss entirely. These four conditions do not simply coexist side by side. They amplify each other. ADD makes it harder to manage the emotional dysregulation that comes with PTSD and anxiety. Depression drains the energy needed to cope with the ADD symptoms. PTSD fuels anxiety. Anxiety disrupts sleep, which worsens both ADD and depression. It is a cycle, and trust me, it is relentless. What looks from the outside like inconsistency, moodiness, or avoidance is often your spouse doing everything they can just to keep moving forward. The things they still manage to accomplish come at a hidden cost that you never see. They're not lazy. They're fighting multiple battles simultaneously and frequently, still showing up for you anyway. That matters. It should be seen. Because check this out. I'm still handling business. I'm still running an e-commerce store. I'm still getting my mother's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm still picking up lottery tickets. I'm still taking my mother to the doctor. I'm still taking my mother to every specialist. If my mom goes to the emergency room, I'm still going to pick her up from the emergency room. I'm still loading and unloading the dishwasher. I'm still letting the dogs out. I'm still taking the trash out. I'm still taking the recycling out. I'm still driving around the corner to the big recycling center and emptying the back of my truck. I'm still moving heavy totes because things need to be done and a house operates 24/7. And a house that operates 24/7 can't wait for a 2-day break. This episode is being brought to you by YouShopTooMuch.com. Yes, get on out there and find yourself something cute. That was supposed to be a commercial break, but my software that I use for a commercial break isn't functioning properly right now, so I'm just doing my own commercial. That's right, YouShopTooMuch.com. Want to look cute? Don't want to spend a lot of loot? Go on out there and visit YouShopTooMuch.com. And yes, I made that up on the fly, because even though I'm dealing with mental illness, I'm still fly. Segment 2, the invisible load, when everything falls on one person. All right, y'all. This is where we get personal. This is where we talk about what's called the invisible load. And I want to be clear. I'm not speaking in abstractions here. This comes from my own life. The invisible load is everything that I just went on a little rant about. It's everything that has to get done that nobody sees or acknowledges. Doctor's appointments, scheduled, remembered, attended, bam. Grocery runs, food orders, pickups, the cleaning, the caregiving, the business, all of it running at the same time, all of it falling on the same person. I want to pause here and bring grief back into this conversation, because I don't think we talk enough about what loss does inside of a marriage. When I lost my brother 18 days after my wedding, I didn't get to set down the load and grieve freely. Life continued. As a matter of fact, I will tell you all on this podcast that at the time, the day my brother died, I was accepted into the partial hospitalization program at Harding Hospital of the Ohio State University Hospital. It's a 2-day program for people who are experiencing extreme anxiety. The first day I went, I was in there with people who were seeing blood come out of their faucets, and they thought bugs were crawling on them, and they were dealing with some really heavy stuff. Now, my brother died the day before, and I went to the program anyway, and I tried really hard, and I had a really bad panic attack. And they took me to the back of the hallway and sat me on a couch and left me. And this woman came around the corner, and I wish I knew her name, but she was an absolute bitch. Whoever she was in 2015, if you know and you were working on March 11th, 2015, you're a bitch. Because she yelled at me and said, "Do you really want to be here?" And I told her, I said, "My brother passed away." Well, as you can see, people in there have a lot going on, and you have to decide whether you want to be here. How the fuck are you working with mental health? How are you here, ma'am? That's not the thing to say to someone. So I tried to come back the next day, and I left early, because in the midst of trying to go through that program, I wrote my brother's obituary. I wrote that. My brother was one of the closest people in the world to me, and I couldn't grieve him because I had to write his obituary. We didn't have access to his accounts, so I had to raise money to have his funeral. I had to reassure my parents that he would have a funeral because Marlon Gary Funeral Home told us because we were $350 short that we may not have a service and that they would just go ahead and cremate him. They showed absolutely no mercy. That's why I wish they would stop sending pamphlets to my house. I would not send Max to that place. And sadly, black people by default deal with them. And I'm not saying anything that isn't the truth. So holler at me if you want to. That is what happened. And so I was trying to do all of that while dealing with grief. 18 days after I got married. All my responsibilities continued. There was no break from things at home. And the support that I needed from my marriage had to show up in the middle of that grief, not after it. Grief and daily life don't take turns. And in this case, my husband, he's grieving too because he loved my brother. And he wasn't able to get off of work to come to the funeral because they don't honor anything for in-laws. Grief and daily life, like I said, they don't take turns. They run concurrently. And so when you're managing ADD, depression, PTSD, and anxiety, loss hits differently. It doesn't process in a straight line. It surfaces at unexpected moments and for longer than people expect. And it compounds everything else already happening in the body and the mind. When I was grieving my brother, my husband came to me and he said, people deal with death all the time and they get through it. How are you're still, this is still bothering you? How is it still bothering you? People die all the time. And I couldn't believe he said that to me. I was blown away. But then I had to realize he's an only child. What does he know about a sibling? What does he know about having a brother who means so much to you that their absence makes you feel like part of you is dead? Like you lose part of yourself when you lost him and you lost a big part of yourself. You can't function anymore properly because the person that you probably would have called to say, can you believe he said that to me, is the one who's dead. So I tried to show him grace because he just didn't know any better. That's all I could say. He didn't know no better. After we lost my brother, my mother came to live with us so that she could be cared for. That was my husband's idea. She should come here so we, not O-U-I, we, W-E, can take care of her. I am her primary caregiver. I take her to her doctors and specialists. I manage all of her daily needs. And like I said, I do this while I run my e-commerce business. Now, running an e-commerce business, I'm not doing a dropship business. This isn't one of those no-touch situations where people are just placing orders and I'm sending stuff out. No, I actually source products. I have actual inventory. And I have to load my inventory. And I have to pull my own stock. I have to place my own orders. I have to keep track of, the dates and everything, because if you try to go pull an order and you don't know where. I remember one time before I had any sense of inventory, it took me 2 weeks to find a pair of earrings for someone. That is inexcusable. No one should have to wait that long. But I didn't have any system in place. And so now I have a system in place where I have to pull my own stock. Now, I'm doing all of this while managing ADD, depression, PTSD, anxiety, and let's not forget about POTS, good old POTS. That's POTS, and that stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And that's a condition that affects the autonomic nervous system. A lot of people think it is a heart condition. It is not. It affects the autonomic nervous system, and that's a system that deals with everything in your body that is involuntary. So like your heat, your temperature, your heart rate, blinking, just things that naturally happen in a body. That's the autonomic nervous system. And that condition causes dizziness, good old rapid heart rate, and exhaustion. And that's just from standing up, along with a shoulder injury that has not been fully diagnosed. They're not sure whether I have a torn rotator cuff or I have a pinched nerve. So sleeping, finding a position in which to sleep without extreme pain is damn near impossible. Now, I just want y'all to be clear. I'm sharing this list of things with you. I'm not sharing it for sympathy, but I just want y'all to understand what a high functioning actually looks like from the inside and why it doesn't mean fine. See, people see me doing all this stuff and they think, oh, well, she must be fine. She's doing this or that or that or that. I've explained to my husband that sometimes I literally feel like I'm being pulled around by a rope. I will get in a swing and I will start doing stuff around the house, and I'm cleaning, I'm pushing, and I'm moving, and I'm doing. And it's like I'm not even under my own power. It's like an invisible force has a rope inside of me, and they're just pulling my body around, and I'm just doing these things almost involuntarily. I don't know what that is. But something that every partner needs to understand is when the load is unequal for long enough, it stops being a logistical problem. It's not a logistical problem. It becomes an emotional one. The person carrying everything begins to feel invisible. Not just tired, invisible. Like their effort is expected rather than seen. Like the relationship is something they maintain alone, while the other person simply inhabits it. Good partnership does not mean doing everything equally every single day. Life shifts, schedules change, capacity varies, but it does mean showing up consistently. It means looking around and seeing what needs to be done without being asked. It means understanding that when your spouse is managing physical and mental health conditions, the distribution of effort has to account for that, not as a punishment, but as a natural expression of love and commitment. If you're only helping when it's convenient, that's not partnership. That's a favor, and a marriage cannot be built on favors. I want to say something, but I'll wait to the end. Our next segment is clutter, criticism, and what partners often get wrong. So I want to spend some real time on a topic that comes up constantly in relationships where a partner has ADD. And it causes an enormous amount of damage that, honestly, it just doesn't need to happen. Clutter. I talked earlier about how telling your spouse with ADD to just focus is like telling someone with a broken leg to walk it off. I want to go deeper on that here, specifically around cleaning. Because I think if partners genuinely understood what is happening in that moment, a lot of arguments would never happen in the first place. Cleaning is not a simple task for someone with ADD. It's not a question of caring enough or wanting to. The executive dysfunction I described in segment 1 means the brain cannot easily prioritize, sequence, or sustain the steps involved in cleaning just a simple space. Your spouse starts in one room, okay? This is me all day. And let me just stick in here real quick. I'm still beast mode because I get it done. Even though, look here. I start in one room. And then you notice something in that room belongs somewhere else, right? You go to put it away. and I see something else that needs attention. And suddenly, things are spread across 3 rooms and nothing looks finished. Even though your partner's brain has been actively working the entire time. That's not laziness. That's just ADD doing what ADD does. Now, here's the part that makes it significantly worse. When a partner responds to clutter by raising their voice, pointing out every unfinished area, or framing the mess as evidence of failure, something happens in the body of the person with ADD. Their nervous system, already dysregulated from PTSD and anxiety, now is going into threat response. Their shame response, which is already heightened in people with ADD. It's called rejection sensitive dysphoria. That kicks in hard. And now your spouse is not just trying to clean, they're managing a shame spiral, a stress response, and a task that their brain was already struggling with the whole time. The clutter doesn't get better, it gets worse. Because a person in emotional distress can't think their way through a task that requires executive function. The criticism didn't motivate, it paralyzed. And there's something else I want to say here that I think is deeply important and rarely gets acknowledged. There are days when the reason things are not getting done has nothing to do with organization or effort. It's survival. There are days when a person with these conditions is struggling just to exist, just to stay regulated, just to get through the hours without completely falling apart. On those days, clutter is not the issue. It's a symptom of something much heavier happening underneath the surface. When a partner walks in and makes the clutter the headline of the day like that, it communicates something that cuts very deep. I see the mess before I see you. Partners, before you say a single word about the state of the house, ask yourself one question first. Is my person okay? Is my spouse okay? Not did they clean. Is my spouse okay? Because if the answer is no, the clutter is a signal, not a character flaw. And responding to a signal of criticism helps absolutely no one. What actually works? Offer to tackle it together. Pick a room. Set a timer. Put on some music. Do it side by side. Remove the task from the shame pile instead of adding to it. That simple shift from critic to teammate is more effective than any level of frustration will ever be. And this is where there would have been a commercial, but again, my software isn't working. So go visit youshoptoomuch.com. Tell a friend to tell a friend. The items are inexpensive and cute. I often ship same day if you get your order in before 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And yeah, go shop with me. Dun-dun-dun. Boom. Segment 4, empathy, therapy, and the choice to learn. This is so important, and this is the piece that's missing so much. So I want to talk about empathy, because it's the single most needed thing in a marriage like this, and also the most frequently withheld. First and foremost, before you even get pissed off, empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything your spouse does. It doesn't mean you have to abandon your own feelings or needs. It just means that you choose to understand before you react. That one shift, understanding first, changes almost everything about how hard moments unfold in a marriage like this. Criticizing a partner who is already managing ADD, depression, PTSD, or anxiety does not produce change. It produces shame. Or piss. Or piss. Piss and vinegar. Shaming someone with these conditions shuts the system down. rather than motivating it. The behavior that is frustrating you often gets worse, not because your spouse doesn't care, but because the emotional injury of constant criticism makes functioning even harder. You end up in a loop neither of you wanted. And holding back and not speaking your mind and feeling like you're doing them a favor because you've wanted to yell about the clutter all along, but you're just now saying something, you don't get a gold star for that. You're still doing it wrong. That's not how you do it. That's not how you deal with someone with a mental health issue. So again, as I've said throughout this program, you need to really assess the situation and assess yourself. Is this really what you want? Is it really, you don't want no problems with me? Do you really want this? Because if you want a person, but you don't want the things that come along with them, you have a decision to make. Don't hold yourself hostage and don't hold anyone else hostage. What did New Edition say? Can you stand the rain? Just decide. Don't punish yourself. Don't punish someone else. So let's address therapy directly, because this is a place where a lot of partners draw a line, and I think it's really worth discussing why. When a spouse with these conditions asks their partner to attend therapy, not as a judgment, not as an accusation, but as an invitation to learn, that request is one of the most vulnerable things they can do. They're saying, I need you to understand me better than you currently do. I need you to have tools that I cannot hand to you myself. Please come with me on this. When that request is met with a no, it sends a message, whether it's intended or not. It says, I'm not willing to be uncomfortable in order to understand you better. And in a marriage where one person is managing this much, that response lands with a weight that is hard to describe. Education-based therapy for partners is not about diagnosing anyone or assigning blame. It's about understanding what ADD actually looks like from the inside, what a PTSD trigger feels like in the body, why your spouse can love you genuinely and still struggle to show up in the ways that you would expect. These are things that change how you respond in the hard moments. And the hard moments are where marriages are either held together or quietly taken apart. Choosing not to learn about something that fundamentally shapes your spouse's daily life is a choice, and your spouse feels that choice every single day, even when neither of you names it out loud. Here's what a person with these conditions often cannot find the words to say, but desperately needs their partner to know. I'm trying harder than you can see. My effort looks different than yours. The fact that I'm still here, still functioning, still loving you in the middle of everything I carry is one of the most significant things I do every single day. I just need you to see it. We're getting close to the end, and what I'm going to do here is I think I may break this up into segments because this is a lot. We're already 49 minutes in. Let's just keep going. If y'all listen, y'all listen. If you don't, you don't. How about that? Next up, we've got financial dynamics and what independence actually means. Now, during this podcast, we've been in some heavy emotional territory, and I want to shift into something that's equally important, but it often gets overlooked. The financial dynamic in marriages, because a lot of harm gets done here that doesn't need to happen. First, If you compare your current spouse to a previous partner, that can be corrosive. But a lot of times it's done to understand the dynamic that you once shared versus the dynamic that you share now. Because if you have a partner who was extremely mean and, they had a bashing personality, and now you're with someone who's softer, but you carry the same anger that you should have had for your previous spouse into your marriage with your current spouse, then that is a problem. And yes, I know that your current spouse is not your ex and vice versa. These people have different histories, they have different strengths, different contributions, and measuring them against someone who had different needs or different arrangements is not a fair standard. But sometimes you have to understand the dynamic. And I've done that, honestly, because my spouse's ex was a very mean woman. She was very evil. She called him names and all sorts of things. I don't do any of that. So I feel like if you got all the smoke for me, where was your smoke for her? So I've done that, and it wasn't out of, just trying to be mean or anything. I was just trying to make the comparison. And a lot of times that's how it works. A person can be with someone who's very abusive to them, very mean, and then they'll move on to the next person who has a totally different personality, much nicer person, and then they'll hurt that person. They say hurt people will do better. Don't do that. Fix it. Something to understand about compulsive shopping in the context of ADD and depression. In these cases, it's not just, it's not simply a lack of self-control. And I don't think a lot of people know that. The ADD brain is chronically understimulated and is constantly seeking dopamine, the brain's natural reward chemical. Shopping provides a brief but real neurological hit of novelty and pleasure. We joke about this. My friend Nancy and I will show up to Dollar Tree, and I'll say, I got to stay in the car. I'm going to stay in the car because I know that if I go in the store with her, it's going to be trouble. Like, forget what Samora said. I will go in Dollar Tree with a cart all day, every day. And I will come out with stuff that I do not need. I will come out with stuff for other people. And so it's just that little hit, that little bit of joy. For someone managing depression, isolation, and limited access to other reliable sources of joy, it can become one of the only available ways to feel good for a moment. And that's worth understanding before it's judged. I even judge myself. Now, it doesn't mean that my habits or my patterns shouldn't ever be discussed. It means it deserves to be approached with curiosity and compassion rather than criticism. And if a partner wants to have an honest conversation about finances, they need to first show up as a genuine financial partner, present, consistent, and contributing. And I just want to close this segment with something I cannot say strongly enough. Being highly capable is not the same as being okay. The spouse who's still running a business, still caregiving, still managing the household, that person is often the last one anyone thinks to check on. Because from the outside, it looks like they have it all together. So please check on your person. Check on your person anyway. Not just how was your day, how are you actually doing? That question asked genuinely and regularly is one of the simplest and most powerful things a partner can do, and it feels good to hear it. When someone sits down and says, no, how you doing? No, really, how are you? I check in all the time. It's nice when you receive those things in return. Next up, segment 6, I haven't been numbering the segments, and you're probably, if you're a judgy type of person, you're probably like, well, she says spouse and girlfriend and partner and person, and she's not numbering all of the segments. Well, we're on segment 6, people, okay? Just stick with me. We're almost done. We're at the finish line. Isolation and emotional presence in a marriage. Big E. All of these are so big to me. I keep saying, oh, this is one I want to stick with. This is a big one. But they're all big. They all matter. They're all part of a puzzle. It's all so important. So there's something that rarely gets talked about in conversations about marriage and mental health. And I want to bring it forward today. Isolation. When you're living with anxiety or PTSD, your world can shrink. Social situations require energy that's just not always available. When physical conditions are layered on top like POTS, which I mentioned earlier, or chronic pain from an ongoing energy, the radius of daily life gets very small, very fast. When that same person is spending long stretches of time at home without consistent companionship, without a partner who's emotionally present and available, something quietly starts to break down. Not all at once, gradually, in the way that water wears down stone over time, slowly, invisibly, until one day something gives. There's a specific kind of loneliness that exists only inside of a marriage, and it is one of the most disorienting things a person can experience. It is lonelier than being single, because when you're single, the absence makes sense. When you're married and still feel this alone, it means something. It means the structure of the relationship is not holding what it was supposed to hold. Isolation is not just emotionally painful for someone with these conditions. It is medically significant. Loneliness deepens depression. It amplifies anxiety. It makes PTSD harder to manage because there's no external calm to borrow, no co-regulation, no steadiness coming from another person in the home. It worsens ADD symptoms because there is no structure, no rhythm, no anchor to the day. Emotional presence in a marriage is not about being in the same building. It's about being genuinely available, checking in, being curious about your spouse's inner world, creating a space where they actually feel seen and not just tolerated. When that kind of presence is missing, and the person is already carrying everything else we've talked about today, the weight of it becomes very difficult to put into words. Partners, I want to ask you something honest. Does your spouse have genuine joy in their life? Real connection? Moments that are actually theirs, not tasks, not caregiving, not symptom management, but actual rest and pleasure and lightness? If the answer is no, that's worth sitting with and worth talking about together. And if you don't know, that's even worse, because that means you don't know what's going on with your spouse. And it's time for another commercial break, and I still don't have a commercial, but go visit youshoptoomuch.com and buy something today and spend some money with me, and I will appreciate it. Thank you. Ba-da-bum. Segment 7. And this is the good part. We're there, people. We're at the end. What good partnership actually looks like. I want to close this extra long podcast that you've sat through with something constructive, because everything in this episode was always meant to point somewhere real. Not just to name what's hard, but to hand you something you can actually do. Good partnership, when you love someone with ADD, depression, PTSD, or anxiety, looks like this. It looks like educating yourself. Not waiting for your spouse to explain their conditions to you one more time. Praise the Lord, saints. One more time. I have to tell you this. No, the ADD does this. I sent you that video, but did you listen to the recording I sent you? But I sent you that thing on YouTube. Well, no, but did you look at the TikTok about the girl? Well, did you watch the TikTok video I sent you about the man, and he calls it Amelia glitter because his wife's name is Amelia, and she sprinkles things throughout the house, and he just calls it glitter, and he goes and picks up behind her, and he's so nice and wonderful to her. It's so sweet. It makes me want to cry. I wish you were like that. I don't want to explain it all the time. I don't want to keep explaining me. I don't want to keep excusing me. I want to keep apologizing for me. Don't make your spouse do that. Your spouse shouldn't have to explain for having ADD. They shouldn't have it to explain their behavior away. They shouldn't have to feel ashamed. Don't do that to your person. Read. If you know your spouse has a condition, you should be educated on it. Read about it. If you can sit and read on how to make videos, if you can sit and read and watch football, if you can play PlayStation, if you can be on a Call of Duty squad with people outside of the country, and I'm talking to all the spouses out here, if you can go get your nails done and your husband is at home struggling while you're sitting in a nail shop, pull up something on the phone and read about his condition. What's going on with him? You want to learn about your person. This is your person. This is the person that you God gave you this person. If you believe in God, God gave you this person. Maybe you think the universe brought this person into your life. Aren't they worth investing in? If they have something going on, is it worth listening? Is it worth attending therapy? Attend therapy. Go, even if it's just one time, to understand what's actually happening in that person's nervous system. Understanding the changes and how you respond in those moments that count. And the moments that count are where marriages are either held together or they are going to fall apart. Good partnership looks like sharing the load consistently, not selectively, not when you have time. Again, life is 24/7. You don't get to pick just the days or the moments when it's convenient for you. I feel like a machine most days. I'm like Puffy. And I know people don't like that reference. Can't stop, won't stop. Don't care. For real. I feel like can't stop, won't stop, can't stop. Like, I slept in the chair last night. How about that? I slept in the chair and popped right up and started working again. Because I directly relate my value to my ability to produce. And even dealing with all of the shit that I'm dealing with, I'm still pumping and pushing and moving, trying to impress someone who don't even really probably care about what I'm doing. Let's just put it on out there, because I am tired as fuck. Share the load. Know what's going on with your person. And understand something. Two things can be true. Your wife can be a wonderful person. She can be the most wonderful woman in the world. She is a sweetheart. She's very kind. People like her. She is likable. She is nice. But she doesn't understand your condition. All of that goes out the window. Because she can't help you function. She can't help you walk through the things that ail you. Yeah, nice is great. A great body is nice. But if she can't help you function through your anxiety, if she can't help you figure out, oh, my husband's dealing with depression, let's take these next steps to get him better. None of that stuff matters. Be consistent in your efforts, not selective. This means looking around and seeing what needs to be done without being asked. If you see trash that needs to be taken out, your spouse shouldn't have to say, hey, can you take out the trash for me? Just do it. Recognizing that when your partner has physical and mental health limitations, the distribution of effort in a relationship needs to reflect that, not as a burden on you, but as an act of love. It looks like choosing not to lead with criticism. Asking first, is my spouse okay? Before commenting on what didn't get done. offering to help with the hard things rather than adding them to the shame pile. Meeting your partner where they are rather than where you wish they were. It looks like staying genuinely curious about your partner's inner life. Staying curious. Can't be every 6 months or when they have a meltdown and burst into tears and they're crying uncontrollably that you say, "What's wrong?" Ask what they need. And don't just ask, listen when they answer. And choosing to go to therapy when they ask. Because you love them more than you love being comfortable. And here's the honest question I want to leave every partner with. And I'm not asking this as an accusation. I'm asking it as a genuine invitation to look in the mirror. If your spouse is managing multiple mental and physical health conditions, carrying the household, running a business, caregiving for a family member, and or grieving losses, what are you bringing to this marriage? What would your spouse say if you asked them honestly whether they feel seen and supported? Because finances are great, but money is everywhere. It's everywhere and is nowhere. There are things that are way more important than money. And answering these questions isn't easy. They're not easy questions, but they're the right questions. To anyone listening who is the person living with these conditions, I know it sounds lame, but I see you. I am you. And the fact that you're still here, you're still functioning, you're still loving someone through all of this, that is not nothing. That's extraordinary. And you deserve a partner who recognizes that. You deserve consistency, presence, and someone who chooses to truly understand you rather than to simply endure you. You're worth the effort it takes to love you and to love you well. Don't settle for less than that. If you made it to the end of this episode, thank you. Thank you so, so much for sticking and staying with me. I know how I've laughed. My voice tone changes. I can't help it. It's just a thing. And this was a heavy one. And I know this. I understand this. So whether you're here because you love someone with these conditions or because you're the person who's been waiting for someone to say these things out loud, I hope something today gave you language for what you've been feeling but couldn't quite name. It is my hope that the person you love and who hopefully loves you back receives this well. I hope that they've listened to this podcast with you, and I hope that it doesn't breed animosity. I hope it fosters communication. I hope it breeds understanding. I hope that you're met with kindness. All too often we see where if a spouse is trying to share what's on their heart, instead of saying, "Oh, I had no way you felt that way, no idea you felt that way," or, "Oh, I'm sorry," and trying to make things better, a lot of people go into tit for tat mode. They can't just hear something. They feel like they're being attacked. "Well, why are you always jumping on me?" Or, "Well, you did, da 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 da." Again, we're not keeping score. We're trying to move forward. I'm trying to tell you what's going on with me. I shared this podcast with you. Did you get something out of it? Can you love me better? What's going on with you? How can I love you better? That sort of thing. Because mental health, it doesn't make a person unlovable. It makes them human. And the people in their lives have a choice. Either meet them where they are or not. And then the not is what people try to run around. Sometimes it's just not meant to be. And that's okay. But rather than staying in a situation and tormenting one another or being tormented, just admit that. If this episode spoke to something in your life, please share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear it. Post it somewhere and might find the right person on the right day. That's how these conversations grow beyond this room. And on a lighter note, come visit me at youshoptoomuch.com. I find things you honestly didn't know you needed, and I'm very good at it. I have a lot of little trinkets out there, a lot of little fun stuff. And a little joy goes a long way, and you deserve some of that too. I love y'all for being here. Thanks for sticking this far with me. We are almost at an hour and 15 minutes. Seriously, thank you. That said, take care of yourself. For real. Take care of yourself. I'm not just saying that as a sign off. All right? Until next time.